House will come to order. Members, our prayer today will be given by Dwayne Rembert. He is a native of Linden, Alabama, and is lead pastor of Flatline Church here in Montgomery, Alabama.
Hello, everyone. All right, let us pray. Father God, we come acknowledging that you are God and you are God all by yourself. Thank you, Lord, for being sovereign. Thank you, Lord, for being good. Thank you, Lord, for loving us when we couldn't possibly effectively love ourselves. Lord, we want to start by praying for our governor, praying for our mayor, praying for our city, praying for our state, and praying for our local officials. Lord, we pray for our representatives in Congress so that laws will be made, Lord God, to please you and benefit all people. Please grant them, Lord, the grace to face their unique challenges regarding political unrest, financial crisis, law enforcement, racial and social division, and so on. Lord, according to your word in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 11 through 18, you have torn down all the walls of hostility between you and us. You also have torn down all the walls of hostility between one another. Please give us peace and let each person's words be seasoned with salt. Please give the Alabama House of Representatives today insight into the needs of our communities and discernment to make decisions to lead this great state of Alabama and our communities well. You have told us in your word in Micah chapter 6, verse 8, you said, he has shown you, O mortal, what is good and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. That is our prayer today in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Members, today's pledge will be led by Wiley Edwards. He is intern for the House and student at Auburn University in Montgomery.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, call roll.
Mr. Speaker, Almond, Baker, Bedsole, Blackshear, Bolton, Boyd, Bracey, Brinyark, Brown, Butler, Carnes, Chestnut, Clark, Klaus, Collins, Colvin, Crawford, Daniels, Datcher, Drummond, Dubose, Easterbrook, Ellis, England, Ensler, Estes, Faulkner, Fiddler, Fincher, Fort, Garrett, Gidley, Gavan, Gibbons, Gray, Hall, Hammett, Harbison, Harrison, Hassel, Hendricks, Hill, Hulk Jones, Hollis, Hulsey, Hurst, Ingram, Jackson, Jones, Keel, Kirkland, Lamb, Lands, Lawrence, Lee, Lipscomb, Lomax, Lovern, Marcus, McCampbell, McClammy, Mooney, Moore M, Moore P, Morris, Oliver, Paramore, Pascal, Pettis, Pringle, Rafferty, Ream, Reynolds, Rigsby, Robbins, Robertson, Ross, Sellers, Sells, Shaver, Shaw, Shed, Shiree, Simpson, Smith, Sorrells, Stodhagen, Standridge, Starnes, Stringer, Stubbs, Tillman, Travis, Treadaway, Underwood, Wadsworth, Warren, Witt, Wharton, Wilcox, Wood D, Wood R, Woods, Yarborough.
Hey, as long as you don't graduate.
69 members have answered roll. Quorum is present. The House is ready to transact business. Before we get started, I got a couple of people in the gallery we'd like to recognize. Members of I Know Baptist in I Know, Alabama as guests of Representative Hammett. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you for being with us today. Also, we have Briarwood Christian School, AP History class students from Shelby County, and they are guests of the entire Shelby delegation. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you for being with us today. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Lee, Chairman Lovern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request that leaves of absence be granted for absent members.
Any objections? Hearing no objections, absence has been excused. Chair further recognizes the gentleman from Lee.
Mr. Speaker, I have a report.
House of Representatives, your Standing Committee on Rules begs leave to report that it has carefully examined the Journal of the House for the third legislative day and finds the same to be correct. Signed, Representative Joe Lovern, Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the reading of the journal at length for the third legislative day be dispensed with.
Any objections? Hearing no objections, reading of the journal is dispensed with. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Mobile, Pro Tem Pringle, for purpose of making announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, anybody that can hear my voice, if you want to have a lunch, a reception, a brunch, or any type of gathering, I will not announce it unless you register it with the clerk of the House office. You cannot come to me personally or my clerk and have me announce a reception or any type of event unless it's given to us through the clerk's office. So with that, Mr. Speaker, the Alabama Association of Realtors has a legislative reception today from 4:30 to 6:30 in their office on Washington Avenue. The Alabama Credit Union Association legislative reception from 5 to 6:30 at the Archives and History. The Alabama Healthcare Alliance reception is from 6 to 9 at Ravello's. Wednesday morning, the Rural Caucus breakfast hosted by Alpha is 7 or 7:30.
I think it's 7 o'clock. Mr. Pro
7
Tem.
o'clock Wednesday, and I don't have my second page, but remember, tomorrow evening, there will be a party at the Activity Center sponsored by myself and the Speaker for the members of the House tomorrow evening from 6 to 9. Please come and join us for the fun and festivities.
Mr. Pro Tem, you're further recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I move that when we adjourn today, we leave the journal open and allow the clerk to complete his paperwork, and we reconvene on Wednesday, tomorrow, February the 12th at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. The motion prevails. The clerk will now receive reports of standing committees. Receive those reports throughout the day. The House is now in position to introduce bills and resolutions. The clerk will call the first bill on the regular order calendar.
On page 2 of the calendar, House Bill number 160 with substitute by Representative Lee relating to the Alabama Municipal Electric Authority.
Chairman Lee, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Give you a little history. This is dealing with AMEA, it's Alabama Electric Municipal Authority. It was formed back, I think it was in the late 70s, early 80s. I happened to sit on this board back when I was on the city commission. To give you an idea of what they do, so you'll know, there are 11 cities that own this wholesale electrical company. And I'll call those names out because you are a benefactor of this and their service and their pricing. Alex City, Dothan, Fairhope, Riviera of Foley, Lafayette, Lynette, Laverne, Opelika, Piedmont, Sylacauga, and Tuskegee. They have board members that are put on the board. One member from each one of these cities are on the board. And in the past, their pay has been little to none. It was none when I was there years ago. And we did the same thing with the gas company last year. What it does, it provides them a fee of up to $1,750 for a meeting in a month. They usually meet 6 months out of the year. However, just to clarify, one of the things we're going to substitute in just a minute was to clarify that, say for instance, they meet 4 times in 1 month or 6 times, they only get that one pay. So it's not per meeting, it's per meeting, one meeting. If they have a meeting, they get paid. If they have 5 meetings, they get the same pay. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I move to for the substitute. Oh, BIR.
BIR.
Yeah, BIR.
The chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Riverton, and Moore. Question for the body is adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 98 ayes, 0 nays. BR has been adopted. Mr. Chairman.
I move to pass the substitute.
Okay, you've heard the chairman's explanation of the substitute. He moves to pass it now. The question for the body is adoption of the sub. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 103 ayes, 0 nays. Sub has been adopted. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, I move for final passage.
That's the question for the body is final passage as amended. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 102 ayes, 0 nays. HB 160 has passed as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you,
and the
Mr.
body.
Chairman. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 2 of the calendar, House Bill number 29 by Representative Oliver relating to unemployment compensation.
Chairman Oliver, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, House Bill 29, strengthening workforce, work search for Alabama's unemployment program. What we'd like to do is increase the work search requirements. This bill would require claimants to conduct 5 work search actions per week to be eligible for benefits. Currently, only 3 searches are required in Alabama. This bill and existing law only require claimants to search for work that they are suited for. Suitable work is based on factors including the risk of their health, safety, morals, and physical fitness, their experience and prior earnings, the length of their employment, the chances of finding local work in their usual line of work, and work that is approximately the same distance away as their last regular job. This bill does not change the existing state law that the governor can suspend work search requirements through executive action if there is a state emergency. With that, I'd ask for any questions from the body.
Okay, the chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore, be the first person to speak on the BR. While she's making her way down here, I'd like to recognize Miles College golf team. I had a chance to visit with them this morning, fine group of young men. Are you still up here with us? Let's give them a big hand. Thank you guys for being with us. They are the special guests of Travis, Tillman, Sells, Moore, and Hendricks. Thank you guys again. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My concern about the bill is that I know we're adding the number of searches that they're doing, but I'd like to see, and I know at one point in time we had a bill dealing with job training sites throughout the state, and rather than to increase the number of searches, because it could be a situation that those skills that that person have are not skills that would pair up with current workforce needs. And maybe we should request or give them some options of training programs that they should be in, because I think that's one of the main problems that we face, that we just, even though we're offering through so many different programs, training initiatives that we have, but I think these people that are out of job, it could be a situation that they need to be retooled altogether rather than, just increasing the number of searches that they have. But I do think that we need to be a little more proactive in saying, here's a training program to retool and look at the skills that they have, because their skills might not fit what the needs are in this state at this time.
Thank you, and you're absolutely right.
Chair, thanks, lady.
We did include a provision which does not require anyone to take a job that they are not skilled for, and ADOL, Department of Labor, they can enroll in their training program for another job and still draw their compensation.
Okay, but are we recommending that to them after we look at the fact that their skills might not be might not be the skills for the job openings that we have?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the reason we included that.
Okay.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Etowah, Representative Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So to clarify, this is going to take from how many times to how many they have to look for work?
Say that again, please.
Can you explain to me again what the bill does?
The bill requires you to seek work 5 times instead of 3.
And doesn't that sound like a beautiful thing?
It does to me.
Our workforce participation is at an all-time low. So this bill right here is going to help increase our workforce participation, where just a few of us are carrying the load to spread it out evenly. I love it, and I thank you so much for bringing this bill.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Marengo, Representative McCampbell, will be the third person to speak on the BR.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You explained this bill as one that basically increased the number of people a day, companies that one seeking employment must.
I did, and also it requires you to accept a job if it meets the requirements set forth in the bill, which to prevent ghosting, which means that if the job is suitable with your skill sets, is similar in pay, and not any farther away than your old job.
Okay, and if a person, I'm trying to figure this out, they can go back to the same person every week?
That's a good question. Obviously, that's not the intent. No, that's not the intent.
I ask that because in areas in which I live, you have limited numbers of employers.
I agree.
And with that limited number of employers, once you have exhausted those employers for which you may qualify,
absolutely.
And I think we may need to give some consideration to how do we address those particular issues?
The way we covered that was by entering ADOL training, job training, so you still get paid while you're training. But yes, that's valid in rural areas.
Okay, so if you live in an area that doesn't have that job training facility, how then you don't have a job? I think transportation is also going to be an issue.
No, we have a very lenient exclusion for that. We try to do a catch-all paragraph for situations just like you're describing.
Can you tell me where that's located?
I can.
I've been looking for what page?
On the bill itself, additionally, claimants can continue to collect benefits if there's no suitable work nearby by enrolling in the workforce training program. When it places a requirement or a burden on rural residents, existing state law already acknowledges this concern as it defines unsuitable work opportunities as those within a reasonable distance from the claimant's home or a similar distance as the claimant's last job. That means that a claimant will not be disqualified from receiving their weekly benefits for not completing weekly work search activities if they cannot find employment opportunities within a reasonable distance or around the same distance as the previous employment. That would cover your question.
And what page is that on?
I'll have to go through the bill to find it. And actually, I do not have it in front of me right here. I could ask the clerk to... You want to ask the clerk to find that for you?
Yeah, I'd like to see that, and because that is I don't want to have some of my constituents penalized because they have circumstances that people from the urban areas would have some sort of benefit. or have the opportunity, whereas people in the rural areas, they would be challenged in some of those cases.
No, I think you're absolutely correct. And it is addressed. I just had it in my notes. I did not mark the page and line number.
You didn't mark the, and
I planned pretty well, but sometimes I'll miss something.
I was trying to scroll through it right quick to see if I could find it, but
You're way more advanced technologically than I am.
because I see there's a lot of changes throughout the bill. And I guess when I go and take my seat, I'll go back through it and kind of see how these changes are going to
Do that.
change current law. What page?
I'm still looking.
Oh, okay.
And I apologize, Mr. Speaker, but I'll have this for you in just a second. If you start at line 64,
Okay.
where it says made a reasonable and effective effort,
Line 64.
and yes, and on page 3, and then if you'll continue on down, it's fairly lengthy, but it goes to 95, and that's all the basic provisions.
Okay. Okay, and I'm looking for the particular rule part. Okay, I guess that's at line 120. Notwithstanding any of the provisions, subdivisions, no otherwise eligible individual shall be denied benefits for any week because he or she has met any of the following criteria.
Right.
Enrolled in a course, all right, that's fine. Training, okay. Okay.
And my apologies for not making that mark in my note so that it was more convenient for you.
Okay. Okay, I don't see anything that actually addresses it in that portion, but I tell you, I'll go back and see if I can find it, and if I can't, I'll come back after the bill.
I appreciate you.
Okay.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Lee. Chairman Blackshear, be the fourth person to speak on the BR.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chairman, question for you on this. You know, this is tied to a piece of legislation we passed several years ago. One of the things that I've been hearing back from a lot of the employers in my area has been not necessarily the number of attempts an individual has that they must keep up to receive the benefits. It's more so of them filling out the applications, but ghosting the employer and not actually showing up for the interviews.
Right.
Which seems to be a bigger problem. Is that addressed in this piece of legislation?
We have addressed that you have to show up for the interviews.
All right, because I think that helps a lot, because unfortunately you put things in place for the right reasons, and you wish sometimes people would work as hard to actually apply and actually take a job and working to circumvent the system.
Absolutely.
So I just want to make sure, and I appreciate you bringing this bill and closing that loophole that's really going to put a little more burden on the employers, but I think it's absolutely needed for the intent of what we tried to go with this legislation a couple years ago.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Question for the body now is the adoption of the BR. Clerk will unlock machines and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machines. Record the vote. 70 ayes, 19 nays. The VR has been adopted.
Thank you, body, Mr. Speaker.
You want to pass the bill?
Sorry, I was a little ahead of myself there.
That's okay. Before you get started, let me recognize Representative Datcher for a moment of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, everyone. I am wearing my purple Miles College coat to celebrate the Miles College SIC champions and the HBCU National Championship golf team from Fairfield, Alabama, District 52. Miles College is, of course, led by the legendary corporate and community leader, Dr. Bobby Knight, and the head coach of the team is a 24-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps, Leonard Smoot. Big hand for our Marine Corps veteran, please. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair, thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Mobile, Representative Bracey.
You should let me go.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman yield?
Yeah, you'd have thought they'd let me go on that.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good.
You thought you were done. I saw you walking off.
Well, I thought it was a good idea.
Not quite done yet. I have a few questions. Hopefully, I won't take all my time. So this is a simple piece of legislation, correct? And tell me what makes it simple? Because it appears that it's 27 pages. So what makes it so simple?
Well, because it addresses a lot of things that are already in statute, not necessarily making changes. If you read through and you see what's been struck through and what hasn't. So it is it's a redo of an older piece of legislation.
Okay. So the original intent of the legislation was to say if a person is unemployed, that you want to make sure that they're out at least trying. That was
and
the original
that they
intent.
go to their interviews, and that if they're offered work that is similar to what they had before, meets their skill sets and abilities, and pays nearly the same, and is not any farther than their old job, that they accept it.
Okay, so have you ever applied for a job and you were forced to take that particular job?
I was in the Army.
Okay. Well, outside of the military. I mean, I guess
No.
this is what I'm saying. So a lot of times when people are applying for jobs, they may have 3 irons in the fire, right? And they may have a situation where they're trying to figure out what's the best fit for them and their families. And you're saying that the first job that they're offered, that they have to go ahead and take that particular job?
You know, that's a matter of timing.
Sir?
That would be a matter of timing.
The timing would be if I mean, this happens, right? A lot of times,
No, I understand.
People will be out of work and they'll be looking for work, and it just seems like God just opened up the windows of heaven and pouring out blessings, and the blessings are coming at one time. And when those blessings are starting to come, now the unemployed person has options.
Right.
But based on this legislation, that takes away the options, right? Because they
No,
could.
that doesn't
if
mean he
it's-
can't take another job.
No, but what it means is that you will end up going and taking a job knowing that your eyes is really over here, and you're going to end up quitting. And what ends up happening is people are paying a lot of money for training, onboarding. You know, it costs a lot of money to bring on a new employee. Right.
And that could happen.
And that could happen. So how do we protect that type of person? See, the the biggest issue that I guess I see with this is, can a person that's a chronic unemployed person receive unemployment benefits?
Chronically unemployed?
Yeah. Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably
And-
not.
And the encouragement would be to go to
Right.
some sort of
So-
training to try to make them.
So
part of
can
the
a
work.
person that's like a habitual unemployed person receive unemployment benefits? Probably.
Probably not. Now,
Probably not.
it is about $1.5 million we figure we lose in this state a year.
So when a person work, do they pay anything into any type of system that could help deal with this?
When a person works?
Yeah.
Unemployment compensation tax.
So unemployment compensation. So usually if a person is receiving unemployment, it's because that person has worked. We're treating these people as if these are lazy people that don't want to work. If a person is receiving unemployment, it's because something has happened that has broke the chain of employment that they have traditionally had. These are not people that are sitting at home waiting on some welfare check. These are not people that need to be told that you need to apply for 3 or 5 jobs a week. These are people that want to work because these are people who have traditionally worked. These are not chronic unemployed people, correct? These are people that are unemployed that want to work. These are people, the people that we're talking about, I don't really quite understand.
And what you say is largely true.
I know. I worked in HR for the last 11 years. These are people, I deal with this kind of stuff all the time, and I guess it just bothers me because it's kind of a gotcha. It's like we're making it seem like somebody's doing something that they shouldn't be doing, or these people are being lazy, and these people don't want to participate in society and be good citizens for our state and pay their fair share. They've been paying their fair share the whole time until something happened that broke their chain of employment. Believe me, a person that has a good job, that's working hard, that becomes unemployed, I think they would rather have that good job than $45 to $200 a week. That's not making up for the income that they've lost because of this break in employment. They want nothing more than to have a good paying job. They want nothing more than having training opportunities or be able to benefit themselves. They're not even looking for a job on the exact same level that they lost. They're looking at it as an opportunity. Man, maybe I could do even a little bit better for my family. But we're treating them as if they're scamming the system that they have participated in and have worked hard to help build this economy for the whole time. Because if you didn't work, you couldn't get unemployment. This is not for people that are just like, this person's been out selling drugs for the last 10 years and we don't have any employment history on this person. Now all of a sudden they're applying for unemployment. Yeah, that person, we need to know what you've been doing for the last 10 years. You know, where have you been? Or have you taken any training classes? That's not what this is about. These are people that could be no fault of their own, whatever the case may be. You know, we live in a at-will state, so you don't need a lot of reasons for terminating people because, you know, people are at-will employees, and if a person is terminated, especially in an at-will state, they can apply for unemployment, and it may not be of any fault of their own. It could just be, we're gonna cut back. You know, it's something I've been hearing a lot lately. We're gonna have a rift. We're gonna cut back. We're gonna go in a different direction. You don't really need a lot of explanation or reason for doing it, but we're treating them as if they're. Do we feel like, why are we treating them like this? Maybe you can help me understand the intent.
And
true
it's
intent.
not meant to treat anybody differently than anyone else. 77% of employers nationwide report being ghosted by job seekers, which means people that don't show up for interviews, they will not. We have 127,000 job openings in the state of Alabama that we have a workforce problem. This is a small part in trying to fix that.
We have a workforce problem, but we also have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. You know, that which I don't necessarily think is all factual, but we have a lot of people that are working 2 and 3 jobs. These people are not just ghosting these people. So we think that this is gonna stop people from missing their interviews?
We think it will help.
How?
They'll lose their unemployment compensation.
We're gonna take the $45 a week that they get because they missed the interview. We're gonna tell them we're not gonna give you the $45 a week that you get, that you probably deserved and earned because you've already worked in the system. These people have worked in the system. These are not. We're not talking about people. Anything could have happened. What are the things that is an excuse absence for missing an interview under this legislation? I've been trying to read it. It's hard to read.
It's very liberally written.
Okay.
Everything from jury duty to sickness to
jury duty is
appointment.
Pretty strict. So okay. It looks like we're running out of time.
No, sickness, any number of things. Very liberally written so that you can miss.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd like to thank the gentleman for taking a few minutes. I'm going to read it, and hopefully I can get my questions answered and wouldn't have to come back and ask more questions. So thank you.
Chair, thanks, gentlemen. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Clark, Representative Jackson.
Now I'm making it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the recognition. Did you have poor people in mind when you drew up this bill? People that are running from trying to keep a job closing. And I understand what you're trying to do. But there's collateral damages that's taking place through this legislation. Now, most people that I know want to work. And unemployment from $45 to $225 is not a whole lot of money to be a chronic person that's looking for work. It's not worth it. As high as gas is, you know. And so what I was really thinking and hoping that you would have addressed earlier when you was being questioned here in Alabama, you know, let's say a person only gets $45 a week. Could you explain how much you could do with $45?
Oh, not much.
And looking for all these, you know.
No, I already explained that we're talking about $1.5 million total we figure we lose on ghosting. So that's not the end of the world as far as money goes in the great scheme of what we do. The issue is we have 127,000 job openings in the state, and even though we mentioned that unemployment's low, we just do not have people working.
Where are these jobs located in the state?
Now that's an issue. That's good.
That's what I was saying. Did you have people that are low income and people that look like me in mind when rural Alabama don't have any jobs?
That's where I live.
That's where I live. That's where I represent.
We also address that.
And so how do we make all these approaches to these interviews if we don't have any jobs in the area? So we got to somebody got to take me from location to location, and that costs.
And once again, reasonable becomes the action word there. If it's too far to drive, then it's farther than your old employer, then no, you don't have to go there.
But we got to show up for an interview.
Not necessarily if it's not within the same range as what your old job was.
And I work, and there's a community college there in my district, and a lot of people came for retooling. You got to get from point A to point B, and then if you had transportation, you'd be on the job.
Right.
So there by not having public transportation in rural Alabama is really it's an issue, and it's going to get worse because people are not looking like they want to address these problems.
That would help this issue very, very much.
This will help. How many people?
That's a problem in my district, getting labor to where they need to work. It's a real problem where I live.
And so, how do we address that? Public transportation we don't have for rural, not for going to work. We have a little transportation for the elderly, for the seniors trying to get to their appointments for their doctors and hospitals and stuff like that, dialysis and all this. But to have people picking up and carrying people to a job, I don't think we have that type of public transportation in rural Alabama. So I was concerned about the language that you was using. We have to show up for interviews, but we don't have a way to get there. And you were saying they make excuses of being sick. And people do get
no,
sick.
not excuses. Now there
are reasons for not showing up.
That is a bona fide excuse, is being sick.
Now you were saying that was one of the reasons for not showing up.
Right.
And maybe people do get sick.
Yes. Life goes on, and there are things that people can't control. And we tried to write this with respect to people. We're not trying to be punitive or punish anyone. We just want them to have 2 more contacts if they
understand.
can.
And we're trying to be compassionate. And this is a way of doing it, but it's a way of punishing those that can't get there. So I guess it's a catch-22, 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. But how do we get beyond this point? How do we fill that void? You said how's 120-some thousand job vacancy? How do we fill that void? And
I would be glad to talk to you for hours about the ideas that I've got about that.
Are we going to relocate people to the jobs?
Well,
I mean,
if the job's good enough, they do it on their own.
Say that again.
If the job is good enough, people move to where the jobs are.
If the job is good enough, that's not what your legislation is.
That has nothing to do with this legislation. What we're talking about really is not germane to what we're doing.
We're talking about training. We're talking about getting people to their interviews. We're talking about before they can collect their unemployment.
Right.
So we want people to, we don't want people collecting unemployment. We want to have full-time jobs so they can be productive citizens. You're not going to get anywhere just on an unemployment check.
Right.
So we want to fulfill that need for that individual. We want to make them, we want to empower them in a way where they can be productive citizens in the state and not dependent on unemployment. So how we get that person to the next level, that's what we're trying to do, even though what you're saying is, you're saying that your language is not
that's
geared towards what we are talking about.
No, but I agree.
We want to help people with unemployment.
It would certainly help a lot, what you're talking about.
Yes.
All I want to do with this bill is 2 more contacts.
2 more contacts.
Show up for your interviews, and basically, if you get offered a job and it's similar to the job you had before, no farther away, accept it.
But that seems easy to do, and it would be great for the person that's getting the job. But like we're telling you, they're not where we are. The jobs aren't. And you just said it yourself, you represent rural Alabama, so where do people in your district go for work?
They typically drive 15, 20 miles.
15, 20 miles? That's not far. When you drive 50 to 60 miles to work, and you don't have any transportation.
And that we would not require anybody to do a job search that far away. Now, I would say this: those are unique problems, but that's not something we're going to address in this legislation.
Okay, we're talking. You know, we had a hospital to close in September. Now that was
very
jobs.
much aware.
That was jobs right there. Now these people, they got to go Tuscaloosa, I guess, Mobile, to find a job. And these are professional people. And they're not, and they can't just jump in there and go and expect to get hired in the same day they go. So there's a process involved, and they own some kind of compensation until they get to the next level. So there's a lot going on out here that we are not thinking about when we put this legislation. But I see what you are. I see what you're saying. You're giving them more opportunities, and they got to get there. They got to make the interview. To say that they're still in the job market looking for it. So and it brings on a lot of indifference, but I see where you are. I see where you're headed here, but it's a hard way getting there.
Well, I appreciate that.
But hopefully down the road we can come back and add some more verbiage that would help.
I'd love to talk to you about transportation.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Houston, Chairman Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support this bill 100%, and I won't belabor this, but I want to talk just a second about what Representative Jackson said. Right now, ALDOT has $170 million in a transit fund. There are several different brackets. It can be used for transportation for exactly what he's talking about. What the money needs to be done, Mr. Speaker, and everyone that's listening in here, ALDOT is in traffic moving business. They're not in transit business. It needs to be moved to the workforce development that was just established. That's $170 million will benefit because the top three things, the reason people are not finding jobs, can't go to work, is child care, transportation, and their health. Transportation is a big deal, Representative Jackson. It needs to happen, and the money's sitting there. We're getting these federal dollars. We don't get any. If we don't use it, we lose it. And so we need to be using it, putting it to work, put our people to work. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Lawrence, Representative Lowndes, Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. With the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
How you doing today?
Good.
We missed you in committee last week. You was a little bit under the weather.
I'd say.
But you feeling better today?
A little bit.
That's good. That's good.
Y'all are going to wear me down, though, aren't you?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. We just got some legitimate questions and concerns about the bill, and hopefully we can get them answered. And you mentioned in this bill that there were some provisions in here that kind of gave exceptions to rural areas and people that communities that don't have a lot of employment and things of that nature.
Right.
Could you show me that in the bill?
It may take me a minute, but we got 10 minutes. So, if you'll, and I apologize, I went through and made my notes and did not label the lines they came off of. But at the very front of the bill, you should see
and the reason I'm asking that question is because I represent a lot of rural areas, and I want to make sure that these individuals won't be getting punished.
In the first
for
5
not
pages, we use 10 words to say what one would have in the written legislation. But it talks about the things. If you'll go down to about 64, line 64, and if you'll read down from there in all the way to 95, that's pretty much where that came from. The things that you're excused for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see that here, but.
And it says made a reasonable and active effort to secure work, which he or she is qualified. That's the reason we said we're not going to ask people to do things that they're not qualified to do.
Okay, let me explain why I asked that question.
Yes, sir.
And you kind of expound on it if you want. In Lowndes County, I live in the town of Haynesville, where it's about 2,500 residents. All right. In the county of Lowndes is about 15,000 residents. In the town of Haynesville, it's probably 7 businesses. You have a Family Dollar, you have a Dollar General, you have a Napa Auto Parts, you have a QV gas station, and you have a Subway, along with another family restaurant. But adjacent communities are 30 minutes away from Haynesville. And for me, a person that's getting only $45 a week, it's already, with no transportation, it's already a burden for them to come into the town to try to get at least 3 contacts from businesses. Because in my business, I get about 12 to 15 contacts per week where people coming in and asking, well, I can't hire them because I'm already fully staffed. But they're coming in there just to check a box. Not that they're not looking for employment. But
that's all there is.
That's all there is. And so I think moving it to 5 is just going to exacerbate that anymore. That's going to bring more people in. And doing the same thing. And people with no reliable transportation is really going to hurt them. I see it all day. I see it every day. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, I want to offer this amendment.
Clerk, see the amendment.
Amendment to House Bill number 29 by Representative Lawrence.
Mr. Lawrence, explain your amendment, please.
This amendment just basically for counties with residents of under 20,000 people, it will keep the contact number at 3 instead of 5.
Chairman Oliver, you heard the explanation of the amendment. Do you see it as a friendly amendment?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'll accept that.
Okay, the sponsor says he sees it as a friendly amendment. I got lights on for Warren and McCampbell. Do y'all want to speak on the amendment or the bill? Okay, the question for the body now is the adoption of the friendly amendment. Clerk will unlock machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock machine, record the votes. 93 ayes, 11 nays. The amendment has been adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, gentlemen. Chair recognizes the lady from Macon, Representative Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to see what I really want to say. I think so often we bring bills that, we perceive are good bills, but we're limited with the knowledge as to what those bills are really dealing with. I spent the last 10 years of my professional career doing workforce readiness, okay? I had a chance to travel all over the state, and things are different around the state. And what I realized was that living in a small rural community where job opportunities were very limited, it left those people with no hope, okay? We went and we worked very hard to try to bring some industry into that area. We brought the industry in, but then we realized that the people that we were dealing with were not equipped or qualified to really deal with that situation. So as I look at your bill and what you're saying, I do thank you for adopting that amendment, because it does help that when these people are trying to get employment, they don't really have the opportunities. And I want to thank Representative Lee for the point that he brought out, because transportation is a problem. Child care is a problem. And he added on today that health is an issue. So I think that before we start trying to penalize people for trying to do the best they can, we got to make more provisions. And one of the things that I really liked was when we came in on Tuesday, we had a very beautiful Bible on our desk. And when I saw that Bible, I said, oh, Lord. I said, what are we going to do with this Bible in this chamber, okay? And one of the things that that Bible tells us is that in trying to be harmful with those in need, we got to be more helpful with them. So I think anything that we do to try to punish a person with limited resources is not what that good book tells us we should be doing, okay?
Oh, I agree 100%.
And in my community, what I realized, and I hate that Representative Garrett is not here today because we have a lot of conversations. His son is a Presbyterian, I'm a Presbyterian, but he's a Baptist. So we have to compare where we live and what our philosophies are. And I know Representative Carnes up there in the corner who's talking, he can relate with me because he's a Presbyterian too, so I know what he did. But what I have done in my little small church, seeing the needs of what the people in that community are, I'm developing a 12-week program for single moms, welfare moms, and just everyday people. And in that program, our concentration is going to be on workforce readiness, to try to give them those skills, to try to help them. I'll be working in conjunction with Trenholm College to come in and teach the courses and try to offer some offering to them to help them. So in essence, what I'm saying, and when you look at what's being proposed from the federal government, if they lay all those professional people off in some small communities, we don't have anything for them to do. Those are professional people. So if that ever comes to fruition, we think we got an unemployment roll now. We're going to have a big unemployment roll that will not be able to get the jobs that they're qualified for in these small communities. So I think that, right now we need to be slow as to how we're trying to punish them because they don't have the jobs that they need. And like I say, what's going to really hurt us so bad is if it's going to hurt our population. We're already decreasing every day in our populations. But I think if that happens, you're going to lose every federal employee that you got working for you in your communities because they're going to go somewhere so they can get jobs to deal with it. So I think, in essence, what I'm saying is let's do things, let's hold people accountable, but at the same time, let's try to make a way that will bridge the differences before we get to that punitive stage of doing what your bill does.
Yes, ma'am. No, I understand perfectly.
I mean, that's just the way I see it because, again, working with these people and seeing what the deficiencies are, we just got to find a way. And like I said, I was really glad to hear what Senator Lee said about that transportation money. And we need to find a way to get that money so it can work and it can deal with that. But again, that has been my lifelong goal, to try to help uplift people, to help them to make their lives better. But when you see some of the things that they are confronting on a daily basis, it gets to be sometimes almost impossible to deal with it. So again, thank you very much, and I hope that you will take that in consideration.
Thank you, Representative Warren, and I appreciate the discussion and the things that we've already talked about.
Okay, bye-bye.
Chair thanks the lady. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Ringo, Representative McCampbell. While he's making his way down here, I'd like to recognize the Chelton County leadership, guests of Russell Bedsoe and Van Smith. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you guys for being with us. Also, we have with us the Chelsea High School Future Health Chelsea Care Professionals, guest of Representative Bose, and all the Shelby County delegation. Thank y'all for being with us today. Also, we have Teresa Gilwater from Valley, Alabama, and Letha Crawford from Valley, Alabama, guest of Representative Debbie Wood. Also, we got Clerk of Chambers County, Lisa Burkett. Also, guest of Representative Debbie Woods. Thank you guys for being with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Will the gentleman yield again? You know, I've basically scanned through and read the bill, and I didn't see anywhere, anywhere in there what we were actually talking about, what I was actually considering. But I think one of the things that we can do, and I think is something that we really need to look into, is what Representative Lee talked about. Because some of the challenges, and this is the other question I asked you, what is going to be considered a job for which you qualify? If you are
written very liberally.
Okay, you're saying very liberally, but if a person has a specific training and they are seeking a job in their line of work that they've continued to work for, and they, find a job at some other place, I'm not going to call any names, but a family restaurant, a local restaurant, and they are offered a job making a third of what they were used to make.
There would be no requirement to take that job.
Huh?
No requirement to take that job.
So you're saying then they could continue to seek.
They would keep getting their unemployment till they found something that was similar to what they had before.
Something similar. Mr. Speaker, I can't hear. Okay. I appreciate it. I'm trying to hear him up here. So
Everybody's excited to be back. That's why yeah.
I guess so, and y'all brought a piece of legislation that's very serious here, and I want to make sure we are considering all the elements and all the sides of it as we go through it. But if that person, you're saying they would not have any requirement to take that job.
Right.
Okay. How do you determine then what would be a comparable or suitable job for that person? Because based on what you've said in the legislation, if he goes out and he's offered a job at this local restaurant, then the requirement in here says he has to take it. Because he's been offered a job now. But it's one which he would be truly underemployed because he has certifications and everything else. But it would take him out of the job search market,
right,
active job search market, to search for something that he's eminently qualified for. So how are we addressing that issue?
And that's a point that would be debated. I can't give you a straight answer for how that would be handled. And I think it would be a case-by-case basis.
And that's where I have some heartburn and concern, because you might get a different leniency than I might get as that person is evaluating. So I'm just trying to make sure that as we view this stuff, we are viewing it equitably. because that's very important. You know, we've gotten here and said we are all created equal, and we should be treating each other equally and without any race, creed, color, whatever. You know, but the reality is life isn't that way. You know, we end up having different standards for different people. And sadly enough, some of those standards are punitive toward people that look like me. You know, you and I, we sat and had dinner, so I speak what I feel. And that's the reality of what we are dealing with here. But I understand, because I don't want any deadbeats out there either. I don't. That's not what I'm looking for. But I am looking for equitable treatment for all people. I'm not looking for something special for a certain class of people. If this person is qualified for that, then he could be qualified for something a whole lot less. And this legislation is going to say if he gets that offer in something a whole lot less.
No, if it's a whole lot less, you don't have to take it.
Okay. And I guess
this bill encourages people to seek work.
Okay, and I think Representative Bracey spoke to that earlier. Those that would fall under this, it's obvious they had a desire to work in the first place. You know, when I was in business, I would have people coming by, you know, just to check off the boxes. And most of the things that were in my office, they didn't qualify for. And sadly enough, even I would look at a person without having talked to them. You know, that's just human nature. But I'm not saying it was right. I'm not saying it was right. But the human nature in this thing says that we judge people immediately. You know, time I look at you, I'm going to make a determination about who you are without even saying a word to you. That's human nature. But I don't think it needs to go into the point where we are denying people. And I agree, some people, I'm glad you took that for $20,000 or less. I'm glad you took that.
I used to represent Coosa County, so large parts of Tallapoosa where I live are very rural as well.
Okay, and I'm glad you were able to take that, because that is a challenge in the rural areas. We don't have many companies, or we don't have many opportunities to go in. So that's when I asked you if they go in, you know, do they go to the same place every week? And then transportation was my other concern. So I think if everybody in here would join me, we would be able to go to Department of Transportation and, Mr. Speaker, to see if we can't get that money transferred to a workable solution for the problems that this bill is trying to address.
And I'm glad this bill brought up that discussion. I
am too. All right, thank you very much now.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the lady from Mobile, Representative Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Oliver, how are you?
Thank you for asking.
Glad that you're feeling better.
I am.
So my concerns are that this may be a burden for employers. My heart goes out to the unemployed, but as a former business owner, I'm also concerned about the burden that this could place on employers. And Representative Hollis was trying to explain to me how this works in this day and time. So if, as an employer, I have a request from someone to come and interview, how does that work? Do I get resumes in advance, and do I have an opportunity to look over those and either say, yes, I want to interview you, or no? Because I vaguely recall having a revolving door at certain times when I had a small business. And many of the folk who came to me to interview were not the least bit qualified for the jobs that I had. So how does that work?
And I don't think there's a provision for that.
So I think in this legislation that there's a provision that states that if a person has skills that are obsolete, that they may have an opportunity to receive training in lieu
Alabama
of having
Department of Labor,
conducting
right.
interviews. Is that
Any
still-
of their training programs are absolutely a way to keep getting your unemployment.
So that training could be conducted in lieu of going to these different interviews?
Right.
As long as you're
Right.
in a training program, you would not be required? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And then do you know the answer to my question about whether an employer has the right to say, no, I don't want to interview that person?
You know, absolutely,
know
we're in
that
that will
sounds-
state. So, yeah, you don't have to hire somebody you don't want to hire.
Or interview them if you don't want to interview them? I mean, do you get their resume in advance? Do you know? Do you get any information on the individual in advance so that you have a pretty good idea of whether they're going to meet your needs?
That would be something that we would have to address through the new Department of Workforce Development, I think. That's something that should be addressed. This bill does not really get into that.
Do you understand my concern, though?
I do.
That time is precious.
Sure.
And as an employer, I would like to know that there's a chance that that person may be a good fit for my company.
Absolutely.
So we got to work on that. This is short and sweet, and like other members, I received a number of emails, and I'd just like to read this short email for the record from one
Yes,
of my
ma'am.
constituents. And it says, as your constituent, I am writing to ask you to oppose HB 29 on the House floor. This bill would unnecessarily increase administrative red tape for unemployment insurance claims, and it would deny people benefits that they have paid for and earned through the years. I think that's a point that Representative Bracey was making. It says Representative Ed Oliver's bill especially would harm rural Alabamians, many of whom already live in poorer areas with fewer job opportunities. It doesn't make sense to increase the number of required weekly work applications while also prohibiting workers from reapplying to the few employers near them. This bill is unnecessary, and it would harm working people and local economies. And lastly, it says Alabamians deserve sensible policies based on the economic realities that Alabamians face. HB 29 falls short of that standard, particularly for rural Alabamians, and it asks, please vote no on HB 29. Thank you for accepting Representative Lawrence's friendly amendment. I think that addresses some of what we've received, some of the message that we've received from our constituents. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the lady. Chair recognizes the lady from Mobile, Representative Drummond.
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield? Representative Lawrence, this is my time.
I'm sorry.
It's good to see you, Representative Oliver.
Good to
I'm
see
glad
you.
you're doing better.
Well, thank you.
Would you not say that when a person is unemployed, that's a very emotional time for them?
Could be.
And would you not say that in our environment right now, we just recently changed an office to Workforce, whatever the name is, that our noted colleague and probably well-deserved Pro Tem from the Senate, Greg Reed, is now heading up, because we saw a need that we need to have people trained.
Yes.
And, you know, in looking at your bill and also looking at how much money an unemployed person gets, wouldn't you say that's not enough money to shake a stick at?
Everything's not about money, and we're trying to encourage people to want to go look for jobs.
Well, how
Simple as
is
that.
that an encouragement? Let me just tell you, because the same email that Representative Clark got, and probably Representative Bracy and many of us, I
got 'em.
received as well. But you have to understand the mind of a person when they become unemployed, especially if they're poor and unemployed, and they have no workable skills. I truly think I know what you're trying to get at. You're trying to get these folks who will not work and should be working, and that's notable, but I think you're going to hurt the folks who want to work and perhaps don't have the skill set to be able to work. So I would hope that perhaps we could put some language in the bill to require some training for those individuals.
Well, that is an option, is ADOL training.
Well, I think it's more than an option, because right now I think it's from like $45 to $275 a week, right? That's not a whole lot of money to be able to live off of. And if you require more of them, many of these persons, I had someone just tell me, well, everything is online now, and that's true. But many of those persons don't have online privileges. They don't even own a computer, and then oftentimes they have a whole lot of other issues that are going on that they probably don't even have a home. And we're putting more restrictions to keep them from getting the little bit instead of giving them the training, because I am a true believer that if you teach a man, don't just give it to him, but teach him, you'll get a better product. And I just think that's where I think all of my colleagues who've been down here, we've all been looking at this bill very closely, but we just think training is what we need to do. Alabama has a lot of great talent, and I don't think it's people who are lazy and who don't want to go back into the workforce. I think it's folks who don't have the skill set to go into the workforce. I have a friend, and this young woman, and I call her young because she's been looking for a job for a while. She has 2 master's degrees, but she made a mistake a long time ago, and it's impeding her. And I said, why don't you go back to school and get training? She says, where do I go? I think for this bill, and I had another, when you had in the bill, I wanted suitable. Just tell me what that word and how you define that word.
Well, the way the bill was written is written to be as lenient as we can possibly make it. Because we all understand that there are people that live in counties like Coosa or Lowndes that are rural counties that they simply don't have the wherewithal to get to places that are farther away, and they're limited in the opportunities. So I get that part. What I'm particularly happy about is the things that we have identified that are obstacles to getting employment as a result of having the discussion about this bill. We've talked about transportation. We've talked about training. So I'm happy to, let's keep on going with it. I'm very happy to keep doing this.
So are you going to try to come up with a better way that we can include training in your bill and maybe identify a funding source?
I will support your bill.
Where we can pay for the training? No, I want it in your bill. This is your bill. It's not my bill.
I will support your bill. I want to pass.
Because seriously, I mean, we have a focal point right now. We have changed the Department of Labor to workforce, whatever Greg Reed is handling now.
Right.
That needs to be a component instead of us making an impediment, telling a person, you're so lazy, we think that if we give you 5 weeks, it's going to make you get back to work. It just means they're gonna go get 2 more signatures or whatever they do. But oftentimes, they don't have access to a computer to be able to do it. Somebody says, go to the library. I have a person who can't even get to the library because there's no transportation there. And I truly am standing here because I truly believe that training is what we need to give our folks. They need to be trained because the whole environment of the workforce has changed. What we used to could do by paper is all now done by computers. Even down to, I was laughing the other day because I went and somebody was going to go and become a janitorial person. Do you know they have devices now that operate by robots to clean houses and so forth?
Sure.
But somebody's got to be trained. And that's the component that's missing from this bill. It's almost like you're indicting somebody from being unemployed instead of trying to help them become better and to be employed. We're trying to say this little $45 to $275 a week is a windfall, and we need to make sure that we're getting the most out of them. This is not going to drive people back to a job. It's only going to become a furthermore of an impediment. And I want you, not me, you to look at perhaps some training and come up with the dollars that we can do that. I think that would be much more palatable in this bill.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the lady. Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore. While the lady's making her way down here, I'd like to recognize Lee County GOP Jason Forbes, guest of Representative Lovern. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think at the end of the day, what we're saying is, couple with your bill and in your bill, rather than increasing the number of contacts, in order for us to get more people in the workforce, it seemed like some of the common reasons that people are having is they don't have the skills. So they can make 5 contacts, but they still don't possess the skill to get either one of those jobs. The other problem that they're having might be transportation if they're in rural areas. All of that plays into unemployment and why people can't get employment if they've lost a job. We think that just listening to people, it ought to be coupled in your bill some alternatives other than saying we'll give you 5 contacts per week rather than 3 contacts per week. But embedded also in there ought to be options for them to get retooled so that out of the 3 or 5 contacts, they do have the skills for 1 or 2 of them. And that's what it looks like is missing. That's the point. It seems as though we're trying to get over that. If we're talking about unemployment and people making contacts for employment, that is missing a lot of reasons as to why people are not being employed. And it ought to be in your bill, these options that people ought to have, rather than creating another bill to put it in there. Because we're not going to get any major results by increasing the number of contacts an unemployed person has per week for a few dollars. Because that's not enough to take care of them nor their family. But let's put in the bill that, in the process of you making the contacts, then even after the first time, that person, when you look back at what the types of business they contact, it might be obvious they need to be retooled. And the state ought to be, even though we got a lot of programs out there, we need to bring those programs and put them into this bill as part of some of the steps to help people go from unemployed to employed.
No, I understand perfectly.
Yeah, okay.
Chair thanks the lady. Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Van.
The horror.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I came into the discussion a little late.
I can't see it.
And so some of my colleagues have been trying to educate me on what this bill does. And so, because it was such a robust conversation that appears to be going on, I said, let me get the clarity, since it's dealing with now the Department of what? Workforce
Development.
Development, okay. So can you just educate me just a little bit on what this bill does and why there is such a outcry with regards to whatever you all are proposing? I want to make sure I'm not missing it.
The bill is very, very simple. The only thing it changes is 2 more contacts, and it prevents ghosting or attempts to. That means not showing up for interviews. It goes further to state that you won't be held responsible for not showing up at places that are farther than your old employment or things that pay substantially less, or that offer skill sets that you're not qualified for.
Okay, so my question is, listen, I made up my mind. I'm not coming down here to try to impart any level of discussion to ask you all not to do anything. 15 years it hasn't worked, and I wouldn't think that going into this year that it would work. My role when I stand here is simply to try to get some clarity. So when I go back home and I get that call, I can answer the question. So my question to you, so I will be able to take back the information in an intelligent and in an informed manner, is this. Can you discuss with me the empirical data that has or should or has been given to you by that department that says to you, A, the number of individuals that are on unemployment, the ones that are on unemployment that ghost employers, the ones that are unemployed that fail to answer, that's within the 2 to 3 calls versus the added calls, and the ones who are just simply violating the process here that makes this bill so necessary. Because surely if you're bringing this degree, somebody should have said to you, well, we have out of 30,000 state citizens in this state, out of the almost 6 million that we have that are domiciled here, that we have at least 30, 40,000 who ghost employers, who fail to properly report, and all of these things for which you're bringing the bill. So if you can just enlighten me on that, I will go to my seat. Because I just want to get it when the question comes up.
That was a good question. I mentioned before that Alabama's looking for 127,000 employees that we would like to add to the workforce. Studies show that clearly defined measurable work search actions lead to faster reemployment for individuals who are receiving unemployment benefits. Improper payments to individuals who did not look for work, were not available to work, or failed to register for work helped accounted for roughly $1.5 million in unemployment insurance overpayments in 2023 in this state. In recent years, some unemployment claimants have half-heartedly complied with work search requirements. They apply for a job but never respond to an offer of employment, and/or they were scheduled a job interview but never show up. 77% of employers nationwide report being ghosted by job seekers. Current law is vague on what happens if someone refuses suitable work. There's no deadline to respond to job offers and no built-in incentive to require a person to attend interviews or skills tests. Strengthening work search requirements and prohibiting ghosting ensures that the unemployment program remains focused on connecting workers to open jobs.
So my question goes back, it is still the same question. I'm specifically talking about the state of Alabama. not a general report, in which I value when you all study what other states do. I've been one typically, when I come here, I've done my homework. I'm asking, because this is the state of Alabama, and you're bringing a bill that's going to modify a process. So my question to you is, out of the close to 6 million people that live or that are domiciled in the state of Alabama, number one, first of all, how many individuals on average do we have that are on unemployment within the state of Alabama? On average.
I don't know.
Okay, so,
Right offhand.
okay, let me take it back to, I'm still going back because I'm just trying to get, because when you bring these kind of bills, you should bring them in a manner that we have stats. There are 2 million state employees, individuals that are on unemployment. Out of that 2 million, roughly 1 million is ghosting, not reporting, all of those things that you listed nationally. We have that many people. And I'm not hearing that. And that's fine, because y'all gonna do what y'all wanna do. But for the public consumption, for those that are listening, we're yet again bringing a piece of legislation, for whatever reason, because my whole thing is, if you're talking about getting folks back to work, you need to pay them a decent wage, number one. COVID showed us a couple of things. People who were making minimum wage, barely minimum wage, found a way to succeed and to live during COVID. That is why you see so many of these jobs vacant, because you're trying to send a person back to a $7.25 an hour job when they can do a DIY or find some other means to make a living, and they don't have to have someone standing over their head when they punch a clock. Because they found that in this state, as well as through this country, they could succeed. But if you pay individuals a decent wage, they'll work. Many of them who are serious. You're gonna always have those that are gonna fall by the wayside. But all I wanted to do was get the information on how many individuals that are on unemployment here in the state of Alabama, that you all have crafted this bill for the structure of sending them back to work. We don't even know how many of them that's not doing right. And I'm alarmed at that, but I did ask a question one year. I think it may have been you. Do you know what the middle passage is?
No, I apologize. I probably missed that in my homework.
I no problem. Y'all miss it a lot of times. I don't have no problem with that. Listen, it's okay. I miss it. I wasn't an all A student. I was an A+ student in school. So, but even an A+ student misses it sometimes to get to an A-.
And I may have been less than that at Alabama. So
it doesn't matter. I went. Listen, I'm a HBCU grad. I'm a HBCU grad. I'm not quite, or wasn't quite, a DEI, but I am an HBCU grad. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to get the substance of the bill, because I'm confused at this point, because basically you're saying you're going to increase the number as it relates to the attempts to contact the employers, and they should have 5 now versus 2 contacts or what have you. I'm still confused, and again, for me, it's fact-finding, because I would like to be able to go back and say, listen, we have 2 million employees, individuals that are on unemployment, that are ghosting, that are not reporting, that we cannot reach in the state of Alabama, therefore it's a modification. But I would like to say, since we're getting this straight, out of the departments that we received the most complaints about during COVID, the complaints were so greater in this labor department than anywhere. So those are the things that I would hope that Reed, since he's now over there, the heir apparent, that he would get fixed. I'm
Yes,
just
ma'am.
glad he's not up in the Senate. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Here, thanks, lady. A question for the body now is passage of HB 29 as amended. Clerk will unlock the machine, and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Recorded vote, 76 ayes, 25 nays, 1 abstention. HB 29 has passed as amended.
Thank you, body, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, gentlemen. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 3 of the calendar, House Bill number 93 by Representative Brown relating to the Alabama State Port Authority.
Chairman Brown, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I have House Bill 93, and what that does, it allows the Port Authority to adopt the same process as our universities, mental health hospitals, and libraries, and will come under the Examiner of Public Accounts rather than the auditor. And they'll work with the auditor, the Examiner of Public Accounts, to develop their own reporting system, and will report annually to the Examiner of Public Accounts. Speaker, I call for the BR.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Hale, Representative Travis.
I had a different port bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I just got a few questions in reference to your bill and everything. Trying to figure out what's the effect of excluding property held by the Alabama Department of Mental Health from the audit requirements.
Well, that's actually, the reason that's in there, that's actually current law.
Okay.
But it was the name of some existing mental health hospitals that existed when they wrote it, but that don't anymore.
Right.
And so, thank you. So this just cleans that section up. They were already excluded on the mental health hospitals, but they were specifically named and they don't exist anymore. So it just, instead just says mental health hospital.
Okay, all right. What's the imperatives for this bill?
Well, right now the way they're covered, anything over $500. And so as you can imagine, the port's unique in that, so they bought a piece of equipment in 1940. They're still having to account for that $500 piece of equipment, even though it's depreciated to nothing, right, and they're making parts for it. They're still having to do that. So it's just costing the Port Authority money and time having to do that. And this would allow them to work with the Examiner of Public Accounts, who has said that it's actually in Alabama code right now. I think it's section is 41-5A-5A that spells out that she would come in and work with the Port Authority to develop a reporting system and set a threshold. Some of them are 1,000, some of them are 5,000, like they have at universities. So she would set that specifically for them.
Okay, all right. The other question is, why? So that's why the Port Authority would be added to the list, in the exempt. And why the $500 threshold?
Why? I'm sorry, what?
Why $500 threshold?
Well, that's just the way that it was written in the law originally, was that they were anything over $500. So it's just too low.
Okay.
Now, $500 is
ain't much.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
A man like you's got $500 in his wallet, so.
Okay, well, I don't have any other questions, but those were a few questions that's on my mind, but it just, as long as we can keep moving and important, moving along and everything, but.
Yes, sir.
Not trying to do anything, but like I said, just give.
No, sir, I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Question for the body now is the adoption of the BR. Clerk will unlock machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock machine. Recorded vote 100 ayes, 0 nays. BR has been adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I call for final passage.
That is question's final passage of HB 93. Clerk will unlock machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock machine. Recorded vote 102 ayes, 1 nay. HB 93 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you,
members.
Clerk, call the next bill.
On page 3 of the calendar, House Bill number 2 by Representative Brown relating to vaccines and health.
Chairman Brown, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill, we've actually had this the last 3 years, and it's passed the House and then made it up to the Senate and didn't make it on the last day. What this bill does, it's not an anti-vaccine bill, it's just a parental rights bill. In Alabama, the age of medical consent is 14. And so what this does, it just says simply that if a child is living under your roof, that you have to provide consent for them to get a vaccination. That's pretty much it. I believe that children, the parents should have the right to have the final say in their medical care, and this would provide that. Mr. Speaker, I call for the BR.
You want to speak on the BR or the bill? Question for the body's adoption of the BR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Court of votes 100 ayes, 0 nays. BR has been adopted. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe we have an amendment.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Morgan, Representative Yarborough.
No. Oh, okay. Matt's got an amendment.
Thank you, the recognition. Gentleman yield.
Yes.
I just want to say I really appreciate you bringing this bill. This is a hugely popular topic in my district, but the abuse is real, the effect is real, and I think when we get back to our fundamental principles of the nuclear family and acknowledging parental authority, it's a step in the right direction. So District 7 thanks you very much.
Thank you, Representative. I appreciate it.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Baldwin, Chairman Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes.
I believe I have an amendment to bring at your request that I believe will be a friendly amendment, which will replace lines 42 through 43 on page 2 with the following: an individual acting in loco parentis.
Clerk, see the amendment.
Amendment to House Bill number 2 by Representative Simpson.
You heard the explanation of the amendment. Chairman Brown.
Oh, yes. What this does, it just simply takes out managing his or her own affairs, and because it's duplicitous, it actually mentions that earlier in the language. And so that section right there, local parentis, takes care of that.
Okay, you heard the explanation of the amendment. Clerk will unlock the machine. The members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Court vote 103 ayes, 0 nays. Amendment has been adopted. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I call for final passage.
That is questions. Final passage as amended. Clerk will unlock the machine. The members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 92 ayes, 5 nays. HB 2 has passed as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members.
Thank you, gentlemen. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 3 of the calendar, House Bill number 54 by Representative Simpson relating to child custody.
Chairman Simpson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. I bring to you HB 54. This bill was in front of the body last year. It passed 103 to 0. This will allow a judge to allow the juvenile court to create an ex parte to determine the safety of the children. What we had in Mobile was there was a divorce hearing. The judge heard the hearing and had some concerns about the child, but didn't feel he had jurisdiction to try to take the child and get the child into a safe position. The mother went home that evening after the divorce hearing and killed herself and the 2 children. This would allow the judge to have the opportunity to put the children into a determination as to whether or not the safety of the children for a temporary part-time basis.
Okay, you've heard the explanation of the bill. The question for the body now is adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine. The members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Court of those 104 ayes, 0 nays. The BR has been adopted. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for final passage.
And this question is final passage of HB 54. Clerk will unlock the machine. The members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 103 ayes, 0 nays. HB 54 has passed. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 4 of the calendar, House Bill number 49 by Representative Simpson with substitute relating to crimes and offenses.
Chairman Simpson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. I come to the body now with House Bill 49. This bill would change the potential punishment for if someone commits the offense of rape or sodomy on a child under the age of there will be an amendment that was passed on committee to move it to under the age of 12. Then it would allow the prosecution to pursue the death penalty in those cases.
You heard the explanation of the bill. Question for the body's adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 97 ayes, 0 nays. BR has been adopted. Mr. Chairman.
There is a committee substitute. The original bill as drafted was under the age of 6. The committee made a ruling to move that up to under the age of 12.
You've heard the explanation of the sub. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 98 ayes, 0 nays. Substitute has been adopted. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for final passage.
That is, the question is final passage of HB 49. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Rafferty.
So close. So close.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Speaker. I'm not going to ask you to yield because I just got to put a point out there.
I will yield for you. Not that you have to, but I will.
So while I agree that these crimes are heinous and absolutely terrible, I will be voting no on this, but that is because of my moral conscience and my strongly held belief against the death penalty. So I just want to be very clear about that. I don't want anybody to get that misconstrued. So I want to make that point for the record, let the body know why I'm voting no, and then we can move forward.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Clark, Representative Jackson.
I turned my light off, but I turned it back on. I ratify what my colleague just said when they said death penalty. Aren't we a pro-life state?
We are.
Well, why are you going to execute folks?
Because you can. You want me to answer that?
So you can't be pro-life and death. You can't be pro-life and killing people.
You absolutely can.
And so I'm trying to find out what's going on here. I noticed the heinous crimes, but they executed somebody last week, nitrogen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a bad way to die. And it troubles me when I read this about executions in Alabama, and then we'll say we pro-life. Now, somebody's not telling the truth.
No, I disagree with you there.
Wait, how you disagree with life and death?
I believe you have a right to life, but your actions can cause you to lose that right.
Oh, your actions can cause you to lose that right.
Very much so.
I agree with that. And what about traffic stops?
What about traffic stops?
Your accident of a traffic stop caused you to lose your life.
No, not your life. You have a right to your freedom, but you can commit an offense. It's your time, so I don't want to.
You say action, so
actions.
You know, people dying at traffic stops. But I know what you're saying here. That is heinous, you know. But I think about even going back to the day of the Old Testament days, when death was the way, stoning people to death. But during this hour of executions, has crime been deterred?
I believe there are a number of studies that show that the death penalty is a deterrence for crime. And I fully believe the death penalty not only is a deterrence to crime, but it is also a punishment for the crime that was committed.
The punishment is always, I'm for punishment, but has the death penalty stopped people from killing people or stop people from doing things that cause them to be executed?
I believe it has.
I don't think so. When you got people you're executing, see, if it was a deterrent, it wouldn't be anybody on death row.
There's also the potential that more people would do it if it didn't have the death penalty.
Now you understand that there's mercy somewhere?
Absolutely.
And that's what I was looking for you to say, mercy. Some people need mercy. Some people need help, but death is not the answer.
Well, I don't know that they can be rehabilitated through this, and I think some people need mercy from their Creator and from our God.
And you always, now you start judging people. Now because you're reading the heart now, you say you don't think they can be rehabilitated.
I don't believe you can be rehabilitated.
I think there's hope for everybody.
I think
that's the difference between an attorney and a preacher.
There you go.
See, I believe in grace. That's what Jesus did. You know, he came to, and all the people said, "Oh, he hanging out. If he knew who he was hanging out with, he wouldn't be hanging." That's what he came to do: hang out with those people, the worst people. And see, we done wrote them off. But we supposed to. Lord, I'm gone. Thank you.
Representative Jackson.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Montgomery, Representative Hassel.
Man, we were almost had it. We were so close.
So, this.
He's trying to cut line, wasn't he?
Yeah. I guess, bro, it's a bad crime. I totally agree with that. Now, I do not agree that the death penalty has caused people not to deter them from murder. Because, homicides went up. Everybody knows you get capital murder charges, you can have the death penalty.
Correct.
But my concern is, what if a person is under the influence? Now, this person would not do certain things, but sometimes when people get under the influence, they do some things they really naturally they would never do.
So here's how the bill is set up. It's mirrored by the capital punishment phrase for murder. So not every murder is charged capital, meaning that the prosecutor could make the determination as to whether or not to charge this person with a capital punishment crime so capital rape or capital sodomy. Not only that, it would also allow the jury makes the determination. So the prosecutor could say, hey, this person's out of their mind, they did something, this is not capital, but we're going to charge them with regular rape. But it also gives the jury the possibility, the jury could say, we're not going to issue the death penalty in this case, we're going to issue something else. So that's
true.
It's
but
bifold from there.
The issue we have, and we look at a lot of cases, that we have a lot of people who, you can look at two cases, very similar cases, some of them get charged with capital murder and some don't. So my concern is, my God, the death penalty, don't get me wrong, I got 3 daughters. If this would have happened to my daughters, I would be very upset about it, don't get me wrong. But I think that it's extreme, this is a very extreme, that I don't think it would deter anybody if they're under the influence or they got some type of mental illness.
Well, if you're mental illness, you can't be executed anyway.
Listen, we ain't even talk about castration. But we immediately went to the death penalty on this, which I think that's a little bit too extreme. I don't think it'd be a deterrent. But we can have people who are under the influence or have some type of mental illness, and we're going to get them the death penalty for this. And that really concerns me, because we have people now who have capital murder charges determined on the jury or the DA, and very similar cases, and they don't get the death penalty.
If they have a mental illness, they do not get the death penalty.
Well, I think anybody who messed with a girl, adult, elder, 10, there was some type of mental illness. But
I agree with you there, but you're talking about the legal definition of mentally ill, not able to.
Right.
You're not eligible for the death penalty if you're mentally ill through that.
Okay. All right. But it just really concerned me, because I'm going to say this. Yeah, I know Jackson brought up, and you said, you believe in God showing mercy. But God wants us to show mercy, for him to give mercy on us. But I know this is not the pulpit, but I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Talladega, Representative Hurst.
Just tell her. There he is.
There you go. Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Speaker. I just want to tell you how appreciative I am of what you've done. I introduced a bill several years ago and started at age 12, went down to age 6. The law institution came to me and said, you keep messing with us, we'll offer you a compromise. That's when I went from the death penalty, the castration, the chemical, but now it's death. When the TV station come interviewed me in my living room and asked me why I thought this, I said, I think, my personal opinion, they need to die if they mess with a child under that age. I said, but God will take care of that one day. So it's being taken care of. And I want to tell you how much I appreciate this, because it breaks my heart every time I see something on TV or hear about a small child that's been molested like they have. But appreciate what you've done, and you finally found out that it's going to work. They kept saying it wouldn't work. Couldn't be the death penalty, but the death penalty, yes. I will say thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for
Your
your
thanks,
efforts.
gentlemen. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Montgomery, Representative Ensler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Absolutely.
Thank you. First, I want to echo what some of my colleagues have said. Obviously, this is one of the most heinous, horrific, unimaginable crimes that can happen. But isn't your bill unconstitutional? Hasn't the United States Supreme Court ruled that you can impose the death penalty unless someone has actually died in the crime?
So that's a good point. In the case of Kennedy versus Louisiana in 2008, what the Supreme Court ruled was based on the fact that it was considered unusual because only 6 states used it at the time. So therefore, they said it violated the cruel and unusual clause of the 8th Amendment and therefore unconstitutional. However, there is a national push to change that rationale, because if you're saying only 6 states do it, more states have started to challenge that. So in 2023, the Florida legislature passed this bill of a child under the age of 12 to where the death penalty applied. In 2024, the state of Tennessee passed this bill where death penalty applied for children under the age of 12. There are 6 other states as well that worked on this legislation in 2024. Those states are Arizona, Idaho, Missouri, New Mexico, South Carolina, and South Dakota. So if the Supreme Court's rationale is it is an unusual punishment, then that's where we're striking this to say, no, it's not unusual. More states are doing it.
So currently, though, under the Supreme Court ruling, Kennedy versus Louisiana, it would be unconstitutional. So you're asking us to vote on something in hopes that the court overturns that ruling?
Yes, because Florida and Tennessee have already passed this bill. If they're saying it's unusual, we have other states that we can add to it to say that it's not unusual. So when Florida issues a brief, if they have to brief this to the Supreme Court, they can say there are other states that are doing this as well. It's not just Florida, it's not just Tennessee. They can say Alabama did this, and Alabama would be able to help Florida's case. Because again, the rationale that the Supreme Court used was not, this is just on its face unconstitutional or cruel and unusual. They just said it was unusual because no other states were doing it. So if we're attacking that rationale.
But knowing that right now, the Supreme Court precedent ruling is that it is unconstitutional. Your hope is that they overturn it. So let's just play this out for a second. Chances are the state of Alabama will get sued for passing a bill that's unconstitutional. We'll spend tons of taxpayer dollars defending it in court. It seems, even put aside the constitutional issue for a second, it seems fiscally irresponsible to pass something that we're going to ask taxpayers to have to defend yet again when people are having a hard time, at least in my district, they're having a hard time paying for eggs, paying for gas, paying for milk. We haven't seen those prices gone down. So I would think our taxpayer dollars should go towards helping people with affordability with their pocketbook issues instead of defending a lawsuit that defending a law that the Supreme Court has said is unconstitutional.
That's an awesome point, and I don't remember you being here the last 4 years complaining about the prices increased in inflation. So it's funny how we have a change in administration, and now all of a sudden you're worried about the price of eggs. But that's interesting.
And I'm not trying to make it about that. I'm trying to just relate to what people in my district, and certainly I think all of our districts feel. I've always been concerned about affordability, but again, we're now missing the main issue here is that taxpayers are going to have to spend taxpayer dollars on something that the court has already said is unconstitutional. And I just want us to be clear when we vote on that we're taking that risk to put taxpayer dollars on the line.
So is it your argument that you would not want anyone to come after and challenge the ruling in Plessy versus Ferguson?
So they're two totally
No,
different
you're saying if it's
situations.
unconstitutional for us to challenge it and use taxpayer dollars to challenge it, I think that was a good use of taxpayer dollars to challenge that ruling to come through.
So a fair point, I think, on this situation that we are, again, when we have limited state resources, when the budgets are limited, we're making a choice to spend taxpayer dollars on something that the court has said is unconstitutional. But I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'm trying to. Chair, thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Van.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm back there. I'm trying to save you because, listen, we got a lot going on in this country. I just want to say to my good Republican colleagues, I digress. I'll have an opportunity, I'm sure, before this session ends, but I want to help Simpson. Listen, I have no problem with this bill. Whether it's determined ultimately to be unconstitutional, however the court rules, I respect the ruling of the court. Whether it's in favor of something that I agree with or disagree, however. And let me tell you why. When you've never had anyone to sit in your office where their child has been raped and assaulted and or impregnated by someone because they are not quite 18 and in between, of course you get this statutory rape charge. We see it all the time. They toss it around like it's just water. And outside of that, nothing happens, and eventually in a community, you'll see a card that will come out that if that person just happens to be labeled a sex offender. That's the reality of what we're dealing with. I wish the bill would go far enough to say castration or a vasectomy. One or the other. Because the problem with these types of predators is if they've done it once, they're going to do it again. I understand about the mental illness. We understand there are exceptions under the law for that. But I've seen this so many times, and especially in my community, where it begins to be okay when an underage boy who is in their teens is involved with a girl or rapes or what have you, a child that cannot really and truly make decisions for herself or himself. It could be vice versa. And so many times it's swept under the rug. And so I agree, and even with some legislation that I sponsored in, I added a clause in there for rape and incest. And I think this bill should definitely cover, and I understand why it may not, because you all didn't want to add that in the abortion bills a few years ago, but I'm not even here to discuss that. Because I see so often where these young predators are let off the hook only to become adult predators, and they become repeat offenders, or they become serial rapists, and in some instances, serial killers. Period. And I do not believe, and I don't care who it is, that no man or woman, because you have a lot of these crazy educators that are around here sleeping with kids that teach our children, and it's passively dealt with because they are women. Well, women can be rapists too, and when you take the innocence of a child, you are a rapist and you have sex with that child, and I don't care who it is. So at the end of the day, I know we're dealing and battling with this thing of the age. I don't know how you got to the 12 because I had to step out. So if you would tell me how you got to the 12-year-old versus any other age and how did you cap it there, I would like to know.
So the bill originally filed was children under the age of 6. Currently, under Alabama law, children under the age, for punishment under the age of 6 is mandatory life without the possibility of parole if you're convicted of this offense. The committee, at the committee hearing we had last week, it was supposed to be brought by Representative Chestnut, but I believe he was unable to attend. So Representative England brought the amendment to move it from 6 to 12, to advance it from 6 to 12.
Yeah, I don't have, again, it's not much I'm gonna come down here. Like I said, I see it. I see where these young girls are messed up in their heads as they go into adulthood. They suffer mental crises because of situations and circumstances like this. I get what my colleagues are saying and the arguments that were made on the abortion bill, but I don't even have time to play when it comes to something like this. Whatever this bad decisions you all have made, y'all gonna keep making bad decisions. That's just who you are. So at the end, and you can't help it. And I'm not here to try to fix those bad decisions because somebody buys into the whatever the craziness that y'all do. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to stand and say that. I've had in my time period where I've had to represent for different reasons those individuals who are on the sex offender roll. After Cam Ward did an excellent job some years ago, I championed for 2 or 3 years making amendments to the sex offender legislation here that we have on the books. And it was a great piece of work that was put together in a bipartisan manner. And I'm very, very proud of that body of work, and especially me to be a 1%er that I've been called. But the 1% gets a hell of a lot done that all of the ones that are in the 99 do not. But I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Chair thanks the lady. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Washington, Representative Easterbrook.
The gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Well, first, I just want to go over the price of eggs. If the previous administration hadn't killed 110 million chickens in the fourth quarter because they found a couple cases of bird flu, egg prices wouldn't be going through the roof. But there's 110 million chickens a day that's not laying eggs right now. But my question is, my statement is this bill doesn't go far enough. With all of the appeals that we have today, it'll be 30 years before something happens. But today you have DNA, you have video cameras, we have all kind of tools that there's no reasonable doubt left if there's DNA evidence, or if there's video evidence, or multiple witnesses. There is no excuse for these people on death row to be there more than 3 years. My preference would be 30 days if you have that proof. Is there not a way to shorten the time period?
I completely agree with you. I think that's something that we've got to work at to chip away, because you're right. Some of these families will never see justice done because of the time that goes through. Unfortunately, with the environment we're in right now, it's very difficult to actually get the death penalty enforced. I would support a bill to change that time. I just can't. That's just not this bill. Does that make sense?
Yes. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah. No, I
would want to
completely
come out of
agree with
this
you.
Also, there's DNA proof or multiple witnesses. 30 days is enough executing, rather than spending $80,000, $90,000 a year housing them. We can spend that on education.
You're right.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Morgan, Representative Yarborough.
Thank you. The recognition, gentleman yield.
Yes, sir.
So there's been a mention of God and mercy and grace, and I just want to, first of all, announce, no shock, I love the bill, but there's 3 verses that you can come back with when people want to bring God's name into it. Romans 13 says that one of the signs of a godly civil magistrate is he a terror to those who do evil and a rewarder of those that do good. Number 2, our Lord Jesus said that love is the fulfilling of the law, so which means love is an action tied to a standard. Number 3, Ecclesiastes chapter 8 and verse 11 says that because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. So the Word of God speaks clearly on this issue, and you're doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Sellers. Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore.
Mm-hmm. We did that, yeah. Probably like 6 years.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm in agreement in theory for your bill. My only concern, as always, when we're talking about certain incidents and the death penalty, as it relates to a person that's been falsely convicted. And it might not happen often, but one time is too much. Because I agree with you. Because working in a hospital, I've seen 2-year-olds that have been abused by the mama's boyfriend and just torn to smithereens and stuff that they'll never recover from. But I still have to wonder about what happens if someone just purposely lie on somebody and they didn't do anything, but they're convicted. And we've seen that in history. So what type of recourse is it there?
So it would be the same recourse of everyone that's convicted of this offense. You know, the appellate process would continue to go through the entire the body of the trial.
By the time that they could appeal and appeal.
The appellate process for this would be the same as any capital murder appeal. So
Okay.
it's all. This just adds the current capital murder statute. It just adds these 2 offenses: rape of a
Okay.
child under 12 and sodomy of a child under 12.
Okay, but they still have the same process.
Same process
And
for
hoping that before the death penalty occurs, that either they've been found innocent of it.
Yeah.
Chair thanks the lady. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Sellers. While he's making his way down here, we'd like to recognize the Revenue Commissioner from Cleburne County, Joyce Fuller, as a guest of Representative Ben Robbins. Let's give him a big hand. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
This bill actually has probably tension between my head and my heart. And I understand the tenet and the essence of the legislation. And so while there are those that argue the death penalty or those that argue life without, but until you stand in the place of a father or a mother and your child has been violated and you can't do anything, I think that it really will say a lot. I've been there, and there was nothing that I could do. And so at some point, we've got to move to the place to where we really protect our children and protect our families from such heinous crimes. Just as Representative Mary Moore has stated, that the result of that happening to children, that especially if you've seen it over time, it's not only physically damaging, but it's also mentally damaging for a lifetime. And so we encourage not to vote either way, but sometimes you need to look at it from a parent.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Cavan.
You didn't mean it.
Question for the body is passage of HB 49 as sub. Clerk will unlock machine and the members vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 86 ayes, 5 nays, 9 abstentions. HB 49 has passed as substituted. Clerk, call up the next bill.
On page 4 of the calendar, House Bill number 38 by Representative Hill relating to district attorneys.
Chairman Hill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, this bill we passed last year out of the House. Same bill we did last year, and I think we actually did it the year before. What it does, it gives prosecuting attorneys, whether that individual be a district attorney or a municipal attorney, immunity when they are acting in a prosecutorial function. And what this will deal with is giving advice to police officers concerning legal advice to police officers concerning investigatory or charging process or prosecution of civil or criminal laws or the rules within the prosecuting attorney's scope of authority. So it would deal with that individual as he dealt with police officers concerning criminal acts that the police officer is investigating. With that, I would ask for the B.hour.
Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Van.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Judge Hill, listen, I don't think I've supported any level of immunity since I've been here. I don't care what it's for. And let me tell you why. And I have the utmost respect for our district attorneys. I thank them for what they do. It's not an easy job. They're overworked, and many of them are understaffed. But I've made this argument from the first immunity bill when I came here, I think 2010 or 2011. I'm in these courtrooms, and I'm there in many instances, and my partner at McDaniels Law, and we represent people who have no hope because in many instances, if they're going up against anyone that is either in law enforcement, a first responder, a state employee, you know the drill. Some judges will not even hear the case or even offer a hearing when immunity is at issue. I've said this day one. At some point, do we just dismantle our entire legal system, whether it be civil or criminal? Because we're not giving those people. I've seen people come into court who have lost limbs, who've lost children, who have been injured on the job, and they have no real recourse in a system that should have been structured and built because we now allow so much immunity. And when we started this, when I first came here, the question then, as it is now, is when does it end? Because we go from one profession now to the next profession, and nobody gives us as lawyers any immunity. But every year we're coming where we allow someone in their capacity to have a degree of immunity that will exclude them from prosecution. We play around and we toy around with the words wanton and reckless, or to an extent we play with the definition of negligence, and then ultimately that goes out the door because the average judge unfortunately just simply says, listen, this thing is so richly and deeply embedded in the law with regards to immunity. You have all of these people who have good cases, good people, black and white, Republican and Democrat, but they have no real recourse because of the legislation that we continue to pass to say that someone should be immune for whatever reason or another. And that plagues me. I received a call yesterday on Reynolds' bill. And I respect law enforcement. We have a lot of great men and women out there in blue. But when does this thing with this immunity end? But every year we come back with more and more and more layers. For some reason, somebody should be immune. If they're doing their jobs and they're doing it the right way, even if a tough circumstance or situation arises, then allow the law to work and let the voices of those who have been harmed because of whatever the act plead their cause in their case, and not allow everybody to get a free pass. Because I don't care how you look at it, ultimately, that's what we're doing. So when does it end, Judge Hill? Because I just want someone to tell me that. Because I've been asking this for 15 years. When does it end? It didn't end with the police department. It didn't end with the firemen. It didn't end with the sheriffs. It didn't end with the state. It didn't end with the school boards and those officials that sit on those school boards. So what's next? When does it end? I just want you're a very learned individual, very well respected. When does it end?
Well, it's certainly, we should encourage our district attorneys and our prosecutors to be able to speak freely and honestly and give good advice, give their best advice to police officers when that police officer is investigating a criminal act, and that individual should not have to worry, as long as they act within that scope of that duty, of being sued for advice given to a policeman.
So are you saying that the police officer or law enforcement officer would do the suing? Because I'm confused, because I've never met a freaking district attorney yet that was scared to say whatever it was that they wanted to say. So I don't know where this is happening, and I must be missing something. But listen, not only that, most of the law enforcement officers show deference, just like many, especially in the areas of municipal courts, they show deference to the district attorneys and those that sit in those positions. So I'm confused to be the most learned person. Again, it wouldn't matter if I were or were not. I'm going to still be seen as this person standing here, no sense, no nothing, whatever. And then I asked the question, well, how many GEDs do you have? How many high school diplomas do you have? How many graduate degrees, how many BAs and BSs do you have? How many Juris Doctorates do you have? But I have no sense. So I don't stand here to be the smartest one in the land, but I've seen even just this summer a woman that was determined to be so incompetent by many who have no education, background, training of any sort. So my question is, I'm trying to figure out what language they would share or state to a law enforcement officer that they would feel that needs to be so protected, or that they are in fear of lawsuit or litigation. Because I don't see that in the courtrooms. When I go in there, I see the courtrooms where these district attorneys are almost the closest thing to God outside of the judge. So I don't know who, is it the District Attorney Association that brought this? I mean, who's heading the District Attorney Association this year? You know?
Who is head of the District Attorneys Association?
Yes, sir. I don't even know.
Well, I'm not sure who the president of the District Attorneys
I
Association
don't even know
is
who's
this
leading
year.
it this year. I thought what's his name was leaving. So I just wanted you to answer me that what language, I guess I'm just trying to get straight on what language that they're trying to have protected.
The advice that they give to a police officer at the point in time that that officer is investigating a criminal act, they should be able to speak with that police officer. The police officer should be able to speak with the prosecutor and get advice concerning that particular incident. And the prosecuting attorney should not be subject to civil liability for advice he gives to a police officer based on the information that he receives from that policeman.
So, I guess what I'm trying to get to, so would the civil litigation come from the police officer, or would it come from a victim, or, because that's what I'm
Would not
struggling.
come from the police officer.
So it wouldn't come, so you're saying that if I am the victim or I'm the whatever, and the police testifies on behalf of the state, and the district attorney and the police or law enforcement officer or an investigator have certain conversations, and that district attorney uses that information at trial that the law enforcement officer gave him or her, and I feel that I am harmed in some kind of way, and whatever that was, whether it was true or not true in the court of law, then I could possibly go back and sue the district attorney
The prosecuting attorneys
or the prosecuting
should
attorney.
not be civilly liable for advice they give to police officers in the course of a police investigation.
So this is dealing with the investigation, not at trial.
Not at trial.
So who's going to know that the prosecutor gave the police officer information? I'm trying to figure that out.
I
This is a little bit
certainly
deep.
can't answer that one.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because I mean, I'm trying to figure out who would know that. I mean, Judge Hill, now you and I been together on some good bills these last few years, but I'm on this one, I can't
The
get.
lady's time has expired. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Shelby, Representative Mooney.
Hang on. Let me listen to what they're saying so I don't know, somebody's coming down. And I knew he called somebody.
I know you've been waiting for me to get up and support you on something. This is a great bill for transparency. It's a great bill for information and the ability of law enforcement officers, DAs, police officers to be advised in the process. Thank you very much.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Berniard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes,
Chairman Hill, this is a good bill, and I thank you for bringing it. We've talked about this bill, and I think it's going to lead to better results on the roadside, perhaps, or a better result from a crime scene. Maybe they won't make a mistake when they're about to do something at a crime scene. I think it's a good bill, and I thank you for bringing it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Van.
My lively discussion. Because all this tap dancing and these song and dances that's coming up here, you don't need anybody to come up here and validate what you do, Judge Hill. Everybody knows you and we know your work, period. It's not that kind of party. And I could care less anyway. So you don't need anybody to relegate or validate you. At the end of the day, these are good questions, because once you come up here then and make the comment about transparency, I'm trying to figure out how this creates a level of transparency. Because whatever the issue is, it's going to come up in court anyway, where it will be transparent and seen and said as a visual or through verbal communications, number one. So when folks come up here like that, then you open other doors, because at the end of the day, you obviously really don't know what goes on in these types of instances. And then when you say something about transparency, it appears that you're insulting others, because what you're basically saying is that we don't want to be transparent. I don't have a problem with being transparent about anything. I'm an open book. I say what I mean what I say, and I stand by it, and I don't care who likes it or not. And when I leave here feeling proud, and when I come here, I leave here feeling proud. And not by a lobbyist or governmental affairs relations, corporate leader, or anybody else. When I walked through this chamber, I started that in 2010, and it's still intact today. So at the end of the day, the question becomes for me is simple. It's simple. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to get clarity for myself because I do not understand, because it looks like I don't want anyone to leave here saying, okay, well, is something going on that I don't know about? Because I'm just trying to understand in these instances, Judge Hill, when this type of stuff happens. That's all I'm trying to get to. And that's not an unreasonable question to ask.
The thrust of this bill is that prosecuting attorneys should be able to provide advice to law enforcement officers in matters of criminal procedure, civil procedure, criminal charges and investigation, or other matters of the law within the prosecuting attorney's scope of authority. So that is the purpose, is to encourage questions to be asked from police officers who are in the process of investigating a potential crime or a crime, investigating an event, to call on their lawyer, and their lawyer is the
state
prosecuting attorney.
Yeah, he's representing the state or the city or what have you. I got that. So I guess I'm just trying to get to is that they're not able to do that now, or has there been a number of lawsuits filed against district attorneys throughout, or prosecutors throughout the state, in which there was some type of breach, or that did or didn't happen or was not allowed? I'm just trying to get to those instances so I can understand it. That's all I'm trying to get to.
Are you asking for specific examples?
Yeah, no, I'm asking
give
you. I know you can't. Well, you wouldn't be able to give. I wouldn't think that you would be able to give me a specific example. I'm trying to see where this is an issue. That's all I'm trying, because I was on the phone with my district attorney last night, and he wasn't talking about this right here. And I think I stayed on the phone with Danny Carr about an hour, or if not close to an hour and a half. So I'm just trying to figure out where this is becoming such an issue, whether it relates to district attorneys or prosecutorial teams, where law enforcement officers feel as if they cannot say certain things, or the prosecutor feels that a law enforcement officer cannot say certain things. Again, I'm not down here. I have no win in this room. None. I don't come down here looking for one. I have no win. When I come in here as one party, a party of one. And I come here and I stand because I'm trying to get clarity, not to put you or anybody on blast or to put you on Front Street, because I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to understand, because someone will call me and they will ask this question, and I will not be able to answer it, and I will not have any data or information to back anything that was said on the floor, because I just know how it works. Folks put bills in your hand. I'm just asking for an example. And I am one that's just totally against immunity bills of any sort. So that in itself, and I'm trying to understand whether or not a prosecutor is saying that they do not have the liberty to say certain things to law enforcement without fear of some type of retribution, whether it be through some type of civil prosecution, and that information is either protected, not protected, and because of that, they should be immune from whatever those discussions are. And I've just never seen it where a prosecutorial team did not have the full arm of the law to do pretty much what they want to do in the courtroom, even to the judges that sit on the bench. So that's all I'm trying to get the clarity. That's it.
And again, the only answer that I can give you is that this would encourage dialogue between police officers in the process of an investigation and their attorney, who is the prosecuting attorney, without the prosecuting attorney being concerned about any type of civil liability for advice given to that policeman.
So in all these years, with our judicial system, they've not had that ability to do so?
They certainly have the ability. The question is, do they have the protection? So
they've not had that protection, because I rarely hear of a prosecutor getting sued. I might be missing it, but I have not heard of too many prosecutors in the state of Alabama getting sued. Again, that empirical data may exist somewhere. I just have never heard of it. I would like to see the stats, whether it be through a quantitative approach or qualitative. I would like to know the number of prosecutors in the state of Alabama that have been sued or even called into question to the point that they think they may be sued, that we have to have this bill. Other than the fact that it's an immunity bill, I have no problem with it. All the other stuff, I don't, as I said, I don't support any immunity bills. But to say that a prosecutor needs a bill so they can have a conversation freely with the law enforcement officer, for which they already have those free conversations, debates and deliberations with them, and to now they need this extra layer of protection. If you don't mind, can you tell me, what are you bringing this for the District Attorneys Association?
Yes.
Okay, shame on them. I said, shame on them. I've never not had a DA bill that has, since I've been down here, that I've never not supported. This will be my first one that I do not support, the very first one.
They certainly support it, as do the prosecuting attorneys within the various municipalities of this state.
This will be my first one. Like I said, and I've always supported them. I've carried, up until y'all snatched me off judiciary, I carried many bills for the District Attorney Association. I still think Randy Hillman was the best leader of that group that has, since I've been down here, to ever have that position. He did it with grace, with style. He was able to work across the aisles, work well with a lot of folks, and he put it to you plain. But at the end of the day, like I said, I'm perplexed, and I'm trying my best to start a good session down here. Again, when I come here, I stand as the 1% of everything. I'll take it. Jalen Hurts, in his congratulatory speeches, mentioned the fact that he was a 1%er, and he's a champion, and not because he graced the field of Alabama, but he's a champion because he's just a good person. But at the end of the day, I'll take the 1%, win, lose, or draw. But I appreciate you for indulging me
You know, you're more than welcome.
in this discussion, and hopefully my bills that the speaker, one of them that I'm compromising on, will get on your agenda, Mr. Speaker, next week. I think I have about 2 or 3 good bills, do I not, Judge Hill?
Yes, ma'am.
And a couple of them we passed out. Yeah, we passed out last year. So, Mr. Speaker,
You got a few
I
that you
appreciate
already
it.
know I agree with.
Question for the body now is final passage of HB 38. Clerk will unlock the machines and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 101 ayes, 0 nays. HB 38 has passed. I'm trying to help you, Judge. That was a BR vote, so I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you for doing the BIR vote. I'd ask for final passage, Speaker.
Okay, that is question's
No,
final
it
passage
was,
of
but it
HB
wasn't.
38. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 101 ayes, 0 nays. HB 38 has passed.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank you, gentlemen. Clerk, call the next bill.
On page 4 of the calendar, House Bill number 43 with substitute by Representative Hill relating to criminal procedure.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We passed this bill out of the House last year also. It's a 30 split 10. Right now, a judge can split a bill, can split a sentence 20 years to serve 5 with the balance on probation. This allows a judge to split a bill, a 30-year sentence split to serve 10 in the penitentiary with the balance on probation. The only thing that was changed in our committee, Mr. Speaker, was the counties were concerned that this 10 years would be served, might be served in the county jail. It's not. The 10 years is to be served in the penitentiary. It's a bill that allows discretion, judicial discretion, and it's one that I think we need. So with that, I'd ask for the BIR.
You've heard the explanation of the bill. The question for the body's adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine. The members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 65 ayes, 30 nays. The BR has been adopted.
And I would ask for final passage.
Now, his question is, I'm seeing a sub, a committee sub.
Then I guess I would introduce the sub, Mr. Speaker, but it's the sub does what I just said. It removes the ability for this individual to be placed in a county jail for 10 years, which was never the intention.
Okay, you've heard the explanation of the sub. I think he explained it the first time. But clerk will unlock the machine. The members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 74 ayes, 26 nays. The sub has been adopted.
Now we're ready for final passage.
That is question's final passage of HB 43 as sub. Clerk will unlock the machine. The members will vote.
All right.
Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 55 ayes, 44 nays. HB 43 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I
Thank you,
appreciate
gentlemen. I'd like to welcome the realtors from all across the state in the chamber with us today. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you for what you do for our state. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Mobile, Pro Tem Pringle.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, please remember the Rural Caucus breakfast is at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning across the street. With that, I move we stand in adjournment until 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. 8 a.m. here.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.